I am going to discuss how to write materials and methods. Dr. Anandakrishnan said the materials and methods is the easiest one to write, and it is better to start with materials and methods. Of course, materials and methods are easy to write, but then there may be so many elements, or there may be so many aspects, or there may be so much of information which you have to put it under materials and methods. Sometimes, it is easy to miss out. It is easy to miss out. Some information may not be there, and then when you send it to journal, and when it returns back from the referee, and they will say that this and this and this and are not found in the under materials and methods. So it is better to have a checklist kind of thing, what should be under materials and methods, and then you see to that, before you send your paper, you see to that all those elements or all those points or all those information are under written under materials and methods. Okay. Generally speaking, it is better to start with what you first did to answer your question. So when you are starting a study, what did you do? So of course, after the hypothesis, you would have formulated a hypothesis. So once the hypothesis is formulated, then you would have proceeded with planning the study. Okay. Once the planning is over, then you would have gone to recruit the patients, or collecting the animals. Get the animals. Say it may be mouse, or it may be rat, or it may be something. How do you have to collect the animals? So something, you start your materials and method with what you first did to answer your question. And if your materials and methods, you have so much to say, then it is better to divide into subsections. Just show you an example. This is an actual paper which was published in BMJ. If you see the materials and subjects section, and you can see methods, it is divided into methods, participants, interventions, study plan, sample size, randomization, blinding, and statistical methods. So these are the subsections. Well, I am not saying that all these subsections must find a place under your paper, paper you are writing. No, this is just an example. You can have your own subsections. It is not a must that all these subsections must be there, because intervention, the study plan, the sample size, there may not be any sample size calculation when you are studying when you are doing an animal experimentation, especially with the new substances and all these things. A sample size may not be, you may not be able to calculate sample size. So this is a clinical trial. So that is why you'll find randomization, how randomization was done, blinding was done, and all those things put under subsections. Then provide enough information to enable another investigator to replicate the work. And this is very important. Whenever you write materials and methods section, you should give enough information so that anyone wants to replicate the study for some reasons, or he would like to conduct similar study. So for him, there should be enough information under your materials and methods section. So that is important. Okay, these are all general points. Going to specific ones, identify the variables and describe them if needed. So what are the variables you wanted to measure? Say heart rate, say respiratory rate, or something else like liver enzymes. So what are the variables? You have to identify the variables. Your method section should identify the variables and also describe them. If there is a need to describe them, you have to describe it. Because you have seen, as an editor of Indian Journal of Pharmacology, I have seen many things which have not described under materials and methods section will appear under results. So they would not have talked about liver enzymes, but suddenly the results section will say that no, liver enzymes have increased or decreased, and this is like say amount of liver enzymes which we found out this stage. Whereas if we go back to materials and methods section, if you see that there won't be any mention of liver enzymes. So that should not happen. Then you should define endpoints. Okay, let me show you an example again. So again, the same paper from BMJ. I have say italicized and also put it under yellow color. So here they clearly said, okay, something before that, and our primary outcome was the occurrence of diarrhea. Okay. And also they have defined the secondary outcome also. Secondary outcome was the occurrence of C. difficile infection, defined as an episode. So other things are not really needed. So I wanted to highlight the primary outcome and the secondary outcome are clearly defined. Okay. Then describe the groups number of the groups, how many groups you have got. You may have done the study in 5 groups. So what are those groups? Group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what are those groups? And also again in each group, how many subjects you selected, or how many animals you have chosen for each group, and the intervention for each. What is the intervention? What are the, say, whether you give, say, vehicle, or you give placebo, or you give drug A or drug B. So what is the intervention for each one? And also describe the procedure with sufficient details. Procedure should be described with sufficient details. Again, so this is one of the, this is the same paper. Again, if you see, under study plan, they have given all the details. Whatever, the admitting medical team identified potential patients who had been. So all the entire procedure they have described in 2 paragraphs. Then also they have said about interventions. What is the intervention given? Under interventions also they describe what the patients got. Group of patients. Group 1 and group 2 what they got. Again, I'll come back to that again. Then describe your selection of the subjects, patients, and animals clearly. So here they say that we recruited patients from 3 London hospitals, and if we see the inclusion and exclusion criteria are clearly defined. Included patients aged over 50 who were prescribed antibiotics. This is the inclusion criteria, and the exclusion criteria were diarrhea on admission preceding week, and there are so many are there. I have just left out lactose and intolerance to dairy products. So if you see this paper, they have very clearly said about participants, what kind of participants they included and what kind of patients they excluded from the study. Identify the apparatus. If you used any apparatus, you have to identify the apparatus with manufacturer's name and address in parenthesis. So under the same paper, you see the reduction of toxins A and B, both from stool sample. If you see, they have given enzyme immunoassay kit, that's the name of the kit, from Meridian Bioscience, Ohio, USA. So this is how you give information about the equipment or kit or whatever you use in your study. So the full information must be there. Then identify precisely all drugs and chemicals used, including generic names, dose, and routes of administration. This comes under intervention. I already shown you. Anyway, once more I would like to show you. See, the treatment group received probiotic yogurt drink. This is the one they used for the study. And if you see Actimel, Danone, France, this is the source of yogurt drink. And also Lactobacillus casei containing, this contains Lactobacillus casei. If you see, all the information is there. Milkshake. A placebo group received long life milkshake, Yazoo, Cambina, Netherlands. So where it came from. And also the procedure, the schedule of the drinks, or the regime of the, what is the regimen they followed. Drinks, the participants began using the drinks within 48 hours of starting antibiotic therapy, and they drank 100 grams. This is a dose. They drank 100 grams, that is 97 ml, twice daily, half an hour before, 1 to 2 hours after meals. Okay. So this each point or each information is very important, so that if anyone wants to replicate the study, or anyone wants to analyze your study, or anyone wants to criticize your study, this information is very important. And I have seen lots of papers which come with a lot of incomplete information. This incomplete information, remember that editors or editorial board members are also human beings. With all the incomplete things, they get irritated. If they get irritated, the chances of your paper being accepted in the journal is less and less and less. It will be again, they will be sent for revision. Again, information is again not there. Again, it is going to thrown back, to you. Then again, sometimes, 2 times, 3 times after that, editor will say that, his patience has run out, and he will say that no, your paper cannot be accepted. So all this information, whatever information is required, it must be there on the paper, the manuscript. Then give references to established method. Whatever the method, you used. For example, say blood sugar level. You would have used a method for estimating blood sugar level. So that should be, you should give a proper reference. Because blood sugar level method, it may be a old method which you may be using. For that, you give a reference. For example, I'll just show you. See, this paper is from Indian Journal of Pharmacology. It's an anti-hyperglycemic activity something. And if you see glucose oxidase and peroxidase method as described by Abdel and Berry et al. So, this is the method they have used, for that they have given reference. They have not given any description, they have not described the method. There is no need to describe the method if the method is an already established one, already known, many people are using it. So, there is no need to describe it, but if the method is new, then you give brief descriptions, you provide reference also, and also you give brief descriptions for methods that have been published but are not well known. If the method is not well known, then you better give references. Then sometimes, I mean, no, method may be very new, or you have to substantially modified methods. You have to say sometimes, no, the method may not be used as such here. The method may be used in some foreign country, but may not be used here. So what you do is, I mean, you have to modify it. So in that case, I mean, you have to describe it. You have to describe, I mean, you have to give the modification, whatever modifications you have made and all these things. Then you have to give reasons for using them and evaluate their limitations. And again, I mean, the question comes whether this is to be given under materials and method or discussion. Well, if you discuss under discussion, it is okay. Or sometimes, no, I have seen papers, they discuss this reason under materials and methods. There is no need to discuss it, but if you do it, it is okay. Otherwise, you can give it under discussion. So, why you are modifying the method? Why have you modified the method? Why have you gone for a new method instead of old method? So, these reasons can be discussed under discussion. Ethics, you indicate whether procedures to be followed were in accordance with ethical standards. So, again the ethics, I mean your statement about ethics should be found under materials and methods. You cannot ignore it. Again, the many papers which doesn't talk about ethical approval or informed consent and other things. I mean, that is not correct. Of course, I mean, with animal experimentation also, whether ethics committee permission has been obtained or not. Now you know that in India, I mean, if you don't get animal ethics committee permission, and if you have proceeded to do a animal experiment study, then it is illegal. So whatever you write, I mean, your manuscript might, I mean, under materials and method, it should state that whether animal committee permission, local animal ethics committee permission has been obtained or not. That is very important. Then when you are, say, using patients, patients' names should be avoided, initials and hospital numbers, whatever, illustration, even the illustrative material, photographs and whatever, any information related to patients, if it can identify the patient, that information should be avoided. That should be avoided. So you cannot use patient names or initials, or you can't, illustrative material, photograph. I mean, if you are using a photograph, then the photograph has to be, say, blackened in such a way that no one is able to identify the patient. Then indicate whether informed consent from patients were obtained. Here I would like to show you something. So here, under methods they have said that initially patients had to be able to give written informed consent. That means they got ethics committee permission, and ethics committee said they have to get written informed consent from the patient, though halfway through the trial we received ethical approval to recruit patients with cognitive impairment. Okay. So initially, I mean, the ethics committee, I mean, no, maybe they would, authors would have, or the researchers would have requested the ethics committee. So ethics committee reconsidered, and then halfway through the trial, ethics committee gave them permission to recruit patients with cognitive impairment. That means they have not got written informed consent from the patient. Maybe they would have got consent from the relatives or the, guardians or somewhere, but then not from the patient. But whereas initially they had to get written informed consent from the patient, so they could not include the patients with cognitive impairment. So this information, I mean, it is not, I mean, say, well, if the authors thought that, I mean, they would have simply written, we got informed consent from the patient. But it is better to give these details. It is better to give these details. I mean, if you have got informed consent, you were to get informed consent initially, but later on, ethics committee permitted you, so that, I mean, you need not have gotten the informed consent, then it is better to give these details. Then materials and methods should contain statistical information. Whatever analysis you have done, statistical information must be there. You state how data are summarized and describe sample size estimation and randomization methods. Identify statistical tests used, which variable and what test. Sometimes you may be using more than one test. So in that case, what variables have been tested by test A and what variables have been tested by test B. So sometimes, no, there may be too many tests, some 3 or 4 tests. You have to clearly say which variables are tested by what test. And state the level of significance. At what level you consider your results significant, that is p less than 0.5 or p less than 0.01 or p less than 0.1. So at what level you consider your results significant. And details of computer software used, well, again, no, some journals, they don't insist. They say that, there is no need for this information. Some journals say that, you have to give this information too. Just, I'll show you one paragraph. Okay, this is from the BMJ paper, and they have given a separate paragraph for sample size, how the sample size was calculated. So it is very important to know how sample size was calculated. You have to give the information about sample size calculation, especially in a clinical trial. Otherwise, no journal is not going to, no journal is going to accept your this thing. Of course, in an animal study, it is difficult to say how sample size is calculated. Sometimes there are situations where you don't have to calculate sample size. So in that case, this information need not be given under materials and methods. And if you see, here we used Fisher's exact test to compare rates of antibiotic associated diarrhea and this thing. This is from Indian Journal of Pharmacology. And here they say that values are expressed as mean plus or minus a cm. And if you see the one-way non-parametric ANOVA followed by Dunner's test was used, and p less than 0.05 was considered significant, the level of significance. At what level they consider the results significant is given here. And all the statistical manipulations were carried out using GraphPad Prism software, GraphPad software incorporated USA. So this information should be given under statistical methods. Okay, thank you very much.
Any question for discussion?
Yeah, please.
You have to alter your suit according to the needs of the editor. Then return is important, or the whims and fancies of the editor is important.
It's a very difficult, very pertinent but difficult question to answer. See, there is a way to write, but finally, no, it is the editor's this thing. Okay, if the editor thinks that, no, say this is not important, he can cut down and then he can say that, this is enough.
That's what researchers have to first study the editor in general, then they go for a course.
No, there is no need. You can put in a lot of information. Okay, whatever information is, you think are important, you can put in. Later on, if the editor feels, this can be cut down, then you can cut down on this thing. Anyway, see, very rarely your paper will be accepted as such. That is, when the first time you send a paper, very rarely it is accepted as such.
That means surely you are going to kill the creativity of the paper.
Excuse me, sir. No, creativity, well, creativity, well, there may be, say, it can be creative, but then, no, say, again, the editors have also limitations. The number of pages, how many pages they can print, how many pages they can allot for a single paper. They cannot print the whole, say, they cannot dedicate the whole journal for a single paper.
The time that you are giving us for this exercise?
Yeah, please. There are 4 exercises. Already there are 4. How many are there? Animal study, analytical study, descriptive study, epidemiological study, and clinical trial. There are 5 are there. Please go through the individual task. This is an individual task. It is not possible to go through each and every one.
See, for example, if somebody is doing an epidemiology study, please go to the checklist for epidemiology study, go through the checklist and see whether anything has to be added, whether anything is...
Or anything is wrong, whatever it is.
Okay, because we want you to have this checklist so that when you are writing a paper, this will serve as a checklist so that you can see whether all the points have come into your paper. So that's all. So you just have about 5 minutes. This study is what we say analytical study is basically pharmacokinetic studies, or in biochemistry where you want to compare 2 kits, that kind of studies, where you just take some samples and run some tests on them, that kind of studies.
And descriptive?
Yeah, descriptive is when they do a clinical descriptive study. If you take some patients who come in with particular type of, say, jaundice, Parkinsonism, and then you describe that population, you'll find that in dissertations there are many studies which go on like that, where patients who come to a clinic or a OPD with a particular type of disease, they are described. The clinical features, the biochemistry, the blood, the whole thing is mapped, and they call it a clinico-pathological descriptive study. So that is That is what we have titled here as a descriptive study. This is basically, it is not classified as per the actual classification of research studies. So this is just for your understanding. So you can just clarify.
See, whatever points you want to discuss, you just note down. That's all. I mean, don't have to write it in X-ray sheets or anything. Just note down, then we will discuss.
So if you are into a clinical trial, you need to look at only a clinical trial. Animal study, anyone?
We will discuss it. I mean, so which one? Okay, animal study. Yeah, please. Yes, please.
In point number 4, when collection was made, that is also I feel not required.
Which one?
Point 4 in the last means line, give full name of plants, which part of the plant was
made.
When collection was made.
No, that is exactly they were referring to. So you have to take now what period of time, I mean, you collected the samples, I mean, the drug, I mean, the leaves or some this thing, roots or this thing, plant. Because it means there is a seasonal variation. Suppose you collect a plant at winter and now the same thing at summer, there will be difference. It has been proved.
No, if it is a crude extract, we are using as such. If it is a somewhat...
the crude extract is made from the plant collected from some time.
Correct.
So at what time you have collected, that has to be mentioned.
Then content will be vary. You are right. In that way, it is a content will be vary. In the point that are 8, ethical clearance, animal ethics committee clearance obtained or not. Yes. There is no question of not obtaining.
Not obtained. Yes, exactly.
It should not be allowed.
There is no question of whether no animal ethics committee clearance obtained or not. There is no question. But then sometimes what happens is, if the study is conducted 6 or 7 years back, at that time, there was no animal ethics committee, so we didn't get it. So I have seen that kind of papers also. In fact, one of my research, I mean, which is said to be published, we haven't obtained this thing because at that time there was no animal ethics committee.
Right.
So sometimes, I mean, it is applicable sometimes, but now largely it is not. You are right.
Usually we divide the animals into control group and test group. Because of specifically of animal study.
Yes.
So
say what kind of control did you use? Vehicle control or
yes,
control
and then
or
in control
or
what was
control?
used.
Now, so many controls are there. You have to describe your control group. What type of control group you used?
Yeah.
Yes, method. Yes, very important. Because of ethical point of view, that is not there. Yes, that is not there. Correct. So if you sacrifice the animal at the end of the experiment, you have to say, now what method did you use? Because some methods are acceptable, ethically acceptable, some methods are not. So you have to say. It is simply saying that no animals were killed or animals were sacrificed. That's not, I mean, it's not enough. You have to say what method you have used. And also anesthesia. If you had used anesthesia, what type of anesthesia did you use? Again, there are ethical questions, which some are acceptable and some are not unacceptable. Okay, so we go to next one. Epidemiological study, okay.
What was done about the non-consenting subjects? That doesn't figure in this list. And how were the dropouts and dropouts were, the data was analyzed. That is not in this at all.
Epidemiological study.
Yeah.
Epidemiological study, is there a question of dropout, Geetanjali?
Yeah, if it is repeatedly you are calling them, there could be dropouts.
Okay.
Point taken.
Yeah.
The interventions which are used are missing. Then the description of the control group and experimental group.
Just
which
1 minute.
One are you talking
Which
about?
one are you talking about?
Epidemiological study
Clinical
only.
trial.
Epidemiological
study.
Epidemiology.
Okay.
Okay. Then description of the sample about their age, education, all these things should have come.
No, description of the population studies. Catchment area.
Description of the sample.
Details are there.
Okay.
Only these things.
Okay. At what time period?
At what time period it was done? Very good. Yes.
Yes, that is important.
That's right.
And sometimes we might have operational definition, some classification or something. If it is there, then we need to mention that one also here.
So as you can see, this checklist is not complete for epidemiology. You'll need to add those points. There are so many things which you need to add, right? So please add it to your list and have it more complete.
So now, shall we go to the next one?
Next one. Anyone else wants to discuss any other type of study?
Still on animal study. I don't understand about the food. Food. Yeah. Is it only the grass or you categorize the
Yes.
type of food?
See, under housing condition, it is given. Number 2, food and water. Whether food is ad libitum, I mean, what type of food is given, what is the source of food, and water is ad libitum, or water is given only at particular period. So those things, I mean, we have given only just a hint, food and water. So those details you have to include. Okay, clinical trial. Did anyone discuss? Look into clinical trial, please. It seems to be complete, mainly because this is taken from consort checklist. It's an internationally accepted checklist. Okay, it's an internationally accepted checklist for clinical trials, and the journals. There are many journals which follow this checklist in the sense when you are reporting clinical trials to these journals, you have to follow this checklist, and also you have to take this checklist and you have to say whether your paper includes those elements or not. If no, then you may have to give explanation, or if yes, you have to say and what page, which page number. Page number, you have written all these things. So that is why, no, this is a, made by some internationally formed group, which went through again and again, and then they made it a almost perfect one. Not only for clinical trials, for others also checklists are available. Yes. Gitanjali might
for each type of study, there are checklists available. Just as this consort statement is there, for studies which report diagnostic accuracy, there is something called STARD, right? Again, you will go, that is studies of diagnostic accuracy. So that is a STARD statement, which is available at the consort statement site. That is this www.consortstatement.org. And then there is some reporting guidelines called quorum, which is systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So those are the guidelines for that. Then there is STROBE, which is for observational studies in epidemiology. So those of you who are interested in epidemiology, you can go to this website, www.strobe-statement.org.
No, that is consort. That is only for clinical trial. Say for each type of study, there is a checklist. Okay, there is a checklist for each type of study. This is for epidemiological study. So for each study, for say laboratory study, say for new diagnostic methods, again there is something.
And there is something called MOOSE. MOOSE is for meta-analysis in epidemiological studies. This again you will get in the consort statement site. So like that, for each type of study, there is a checklist.
Thank you very much.